Welcome to NJ News Now. I'm Kristina Behr. We start with a story outside of New Jersey, but one that affects so many people from our state, and that's Hurricane Ian. Virtually everyone in our state knows someone who has moved to Florida in recent years or spends winters in the Sunshine State. Well, Hurricane Ian carved a path of destruction across Florida, trapping people in flooded homes, knocking out power to 2.5 million people. It's being called one of the strongest hurricanes to ever hit the United States. Well, joining us now is meteorologist Mike Favetta. And Mike, let's first talk about the size and the power of this storm. They haven't seen something like this in a very long time.
And specifically that west coast, the Gulf Coast of Florida. Kristina, we've been watching the storm ever since it started developing days ago south of Cuba. And even while there was a little bit of uncertainty, given the intensification of the storm and the specific track of the storm, even just 3 days ago, given that the eye hadn't formed yet until it passed Cuba, there was a sudden right turn that sent it into Naples and Fort Myers, really doing a lot of damage there. What I want to show you now is the track going forward and how it impacts us here in New Jersey. So right now, the storm, the eye exits the coast of Florida, you see it right there at 11 a.m. on Thursday, that little X. Now the storm is over open water, and once that storm center has access to the Gulf Stream, remember the Gulf Stream is that river of warm water that runs down across the Florida peninsula through the loop current right here, starts in Key West and eventually heads up the Florida Panhandle and out to sea. Well, now that the storm has access to that moisture and heat energy, it may re-intensify, according to the Hurricane Center, back to a Category 1 hurricane. That's impressive given that currently it's a tropical storm, and to re-intensify back over open water prompts hurricane warnings now, which is new this afternoon. Hurricane warnings are up for the entire coast of South Carolina, including Charleston. And given how we saw the flooding and the damage that can occur with this storm as it makes landfall, there's plenty of tropical moisture with it. Just to give you an idea of what the last few frames look like of the satellite picture, it's still a large storm. The storm eye moving back over open water, and there's the visible view showing you that you can see the eye sort of clearing out toward the center of the storm, just past that would be the Kennedy Space Complex, so out over Cape Canaveral as that storm works eastward. The problem for us here in New Jersey is that we, for Saturday, are now under a small risk of a flash flood potential, and that's shaded in green. You can even see a little sliver there of the southern part of the state showing up as a moderate risk of flash flooding, and that's along the coastal section of New Jersey. That's freshwater rainfall. There's also the component of gusty winds on Sunday, so a lot of components as the storm strengthens and then weakens before we see those remnants here across New Jersey, beginning as soon as tomorrow on Saturday morning.
And this basically has turned over to a tropical storm from a hurricane, and people hear that and they go, oh, it's not so bad anymore. But when you look at that cone, it looks extremely wide, and this is going to be touching pretty much everybody at this point, right, Mike?
Absolutely. Considering just how large the storm is, remember, that cone just shows where the center of the storm goes. But if you look of just how large the system is, it actually expands far and wide all the way up the East Coast, which is why we'll see the clouds here in New Jersey from Ian as soon as this afternoon on Thursday.
Just unreal. The storm does not want to go away at all. Mike, thank you so much. We appreciate you.
You bet.
Well, speaking of storms, Superstorm Sandy, of course, the anniversary coming up, and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers is now proposing a $52 billion plan to build movable barriers and gates across bays, rivers, and other waterways in the wake of Superstorm Sandy. Those gates would stay open during calm periods and could then be closed when major storms do approach. But the barriers have drawn opposition from property owners who worry about how they would look. Well, mail-in ballots have been sent to those who requested them for November's elections. Ballot boxes have also been set up to receive mail-in ballots through November 8th. New voters have until Tuesday, October 18th to register, so make sure you get out there and do that. Rutgers University will no longer be requiring masks as of October 1st. This includes all teaching settings like classrooms and the library, but clinical settings will still require face masks, and students and staff will still be required to receive the COVID-19 vaccine and the subsequent booster shots. Well, for months, the state courts in New Jersey have faced a shortage of judges. 64 judicial spots remain open throughout the court system, including 3 unfulfilled spots on the New Jersey Supreme Court. Now, those shortages have had a significant effect on the caseload currently in the system.
I say even worse than a crisis. We call them catastrophic based on the level of vacancies. The Chief Justice has told us that the court, for it to function properly, the most it can have is 25 to 30 vacancies. Right now, we are significantly above that. We are right now about 64 Superior Court vacancies with 9 retirements looming. So we're solidly in the 60s, even now creeping up to 70s, which is just a horrific place to be.
It's unreal. 2 of the 3 Supreme Court spots now have nominees, with Republican Doug Fasciali and Democrat Rachel Weiner Apter both awaiting confirmation. Well, coming up next, a look back at the life and the career of former Governor Jim Florio. You're watching New Jersey News Now. Don't forget you can watch this show and more at our channel on New Jersey. Just head to onnj.com and follow us on social media.
2020 felt like a dark tunnel, and while 2020 is over, the impact is not. The pandemic affected both our physical and mental health.
We started the Cody Fund for Mental Health to change lives, so we want you to know about NJ211.
It's a referral service for anyone in crisis, even children.
I am living proof that there's light at the end of the tunnel.
And it's not a train, it's help. It's NJ211.
The New Jersey Hall of Fame is coming to you, celebrating our best and brightest, greeting guests along our Garden State Parkway through its 9 service areas, engaging travelers from our terminals to our transit centers, inspiring new generations as we move from town to town, and at New Jersey's hottest red carpet ceremony, inspiring New Jerseyans at our new home at American Dream. It's the New Jersey Hall of Fame, and it's where you want to be, because everyone needs a hero.
Welcome back to NJ News Now. Of course, one of the biggest headlines this week, Jim Florio, former governor of New Jersey, died earlier this week at the age of 85. And joining us now is On New Jersey's Laura Jones to talk about Florio's life and his career and your personal connection to him, Laura.
Yeah, people throughout the state reacting to the passing of former Governor Jim Florio, who was 85. He was a lifelong public servant who also served as a congressman and state assemblyman. He was also a veteran of the Navy and an amateur boxer. Leaders, again, around the state are reacting. Governor Phil Murphy said that Governor Florio was a fighter who never backed down. He was a leader who cared more about the future of New Jersey than his own political fortunes. And he was also a friend whose kind counsel was invaluable to me and countless others across the state. Now, again, he was first elected to state office in the assembly in the late 60s in Camden County. And then in 1974, he went to Congress. He is the author of the Superfund legislation, which is aimed at cleaning up some of the country's most polluted sites. He also signed legislation as governor here in New Jersey banning assault weapons. And in fact, that legislation, 4 years later after he signed it, President Bill Clinton enacted a national ban that was based on New Jersey's law. Now, 1989, that's when Jim Florio was elected as governor. And those were some really extremely difficult financial times. And he was forced to raise taxes, and raising taxes over $2 billion. That decision is what cost him his reelection. And there's going to be a memorial service on Monday at Camden County in Blackwood. And the public is invited to that service. Kristina?
Yeah, that's not usually typical, too, that the public can participate in a funeral like this, right?
Right. There will probably be a private ceremony, but the last governor to pass away was former Governor Brendan Byrne. So they do have memorial services, or they might have a moment of silence at the State House. Again, for as much as people knew Governor Florio as the guy who raised taxes, he was also very well respected on both sides of the aisle. He was a literal fighter as a boxer, and he was a fighter for all of the causes he believed in so much. He was a very smart, very well-spoken person who never showed up with a big entourage once he was out of office. He still stayed really humble to his New Jersey roots and to Camden County, a graduate of Rutgers Camden Law School, and stayed active even after he was out of office. He was just a fixture in New Jersey, and always showed up to Governor Murphy's State of the State address, as well as Governor Christie's. Anytime there was a State of the address, he would be there. Always very, very dignified, and not one to sling mud. Passionate, but not one who would really get down and play dirty politics.
Yeah, he was respectful. And obviously you've covered New Jersey governors as a reporter for years. What is your fondest memory of Governor Florio?
Oh, that's easy. After he ran in 2000, he ran for U.S. Senate, and he lost in the primary to John Corzine. And I went to his house after I set up an interview for him after he lost that primary election, and he said, come to my house and have the interview. I ended up staying a couple of hours. We got the interview, but I stayed. I spoke with him. I spoke with his wife. They practically treated us like we were friends or, family members. He took me into his garden. He's a passionate gardener. He grew these amazing tomatoes, which I had heard about from other reporters who enjoyed gardening. You have a relationship when you're on press row, which was a state house under renovation, this physical space in the state house where you're interacting with the governor's office. And so while they're in office, you don't always have that relaxed relationship. But after he was out of office, you got to see this other side of him. And, a lot of times when you're waiting for something to begin, you're trying to make small talk because you want to save your questions for cameras rolling or what have you. So it was easy to make small talk with him on issues like growing Jersey fresh tomatoes.
I love it. It's a Jersey governor doing the most Jersey thing possible, and that's growing tomatoes. And he seems like the people's people, right? Like he could just be real and be himself.
Well, exactly. And I was reading some of the articles from some of his former co-workers and people who worked for him. And, they're saying, listen, we really lost so much. He was truly a statesman and someone who had such dignity. And again, that fighting spirit, he took to the issues that meant so much for him, whether it was on the environment or on gun safety. He really was a leader. And and when New Jersey was facing some really difficult financial times, he had to raise taxes. He had to know that was going to cost him his political career, but he did it anyway. Right. And did not go gentle into that good night. He continued to advocate for the issues that he felt passionate about. And, you were asking about some of the memories, again, going back to his house. We had such an interesting conversation this one time. We got to talking about TV shows, and he loved the show Seinfeld, and he also loved the movie Gladiator. So, as a reporter, and I know that, you feel this way, is we are so lucky that we get a front row seat to history. Yes. And that we're able to talk to leaders and people making news. We have that access, and to be able to make that connection, I feel very, very honored in being able to read, all of these tributes to him online from those who served with him, those who worked with him, and then to think, oh, wow, I got to know that person. I know that person they're talking about, not just the former governor, the former congressman. I got to know him, a little bit of him. Yeah.
That's fantastic. What an amazing honor. And he's leaving such a legacy behind. Laura Jones, thank you so much for sharing your stories and your insight. We appreciate seeing you.
Oh, thank you.
Well, opposition continues to mount to a new state rule that would require businesses to convert gas boilers to electric ones. Business leaders are coming out against the new environmental regulations, citing what they are saying are the high costs of converting boilers.
It is going to sock tenants and landlords, so building owners and those that rent, whether it's a residential building or a commercial building, and property taxpayers. There are 1,500 K through 12 schools in the state of New Jersey that are going to be impacted by this regulation, and about 1,500 apartments as well. So those are millions and millions of taxpayers, tenants, landlords that are going to have to pay to implement a program that may or may not be the right thing to do.
Well, a new bill in the state Senate could delay the implementation of that new law. The first phase of the law would take effect at the end of the year and fully take effect in 2025. Governor Murphy did not comment on the proposed changes when he was asked earlier this week. Well, soon you'll have to leave your change at home when traveling on the Garden State Parkway. The state is planning on making the entire stretch of the parkway all Easy Pass. The Turnpike board voted to award a $914 million contract to bring all electronic cashless tolling collections to the Parkway toll roads. The Turnpike will remain both for now. Governor Murphy announced plans, meantime, to install electric vehicle charging stations at 6 state parks and forests in March. As you know, the BPU awarded more than $1 million in grants for the installations. Well, speaking of transportation, the New Brunswick train station will be receiving a $49 million upgrade. It's much needed. The move is part of an $814 million in train station infrastructure spending as part of the Debt Defense and Prevention Fund. Governor Murphy laid out what would be improved in a press conference this week.
Runs the gamut from extending and replacing well-worn passenger platforms to rehabbing or replacing bulky escalators and elevators.
Well, there is no estimate for when the improvements will be completed. Meantime, NJ Transit Police recently held an emergency drill at the Navesink River Bridge in Red Bank. The drill was centered around a rescue scenario where emergency workers had to evacuate 100 victims from a commuter train. Officials say the goal of the drill was to test response capabilities and strengthen the relationships needed in an actual emergency. That drill was held alongside first responders, including officers and paramedics from Red Bank, Middletown, and the Monmouth County Sheriff's Office. It was quite a feat. The New Jersey State Police welcomed a new class of recruits to the Training Academy. Here they are. Over 150 new recruits arrived at the State Police Training Academy in Secret to begin 22 weeks of training. The Academy's program includes both mental and physical training to prepare those recruits for the skills the State Police are looking for in their officers. The current group of recruits are the 164th class in the history of the Academy. Well, this is a cool story. Rolling Stone magazine released a list of the 100 best TV shows ever. Can you guess which one? Yeah, The Sopranos. It's named the greatest TV show of all time. The show, of course, based in North Caldwell, there's your Jersey connection, filmed at several locations here in New Jersey. The Simpsons took the #2 spot, followed by Breaking Bad and also The Wire. I'm Kristina Behr. Thanks for watching NJ News Now. We'll see you next time.